I'm Mike Costello, and I'm here today with Dr. Iris Freelander, and we'd like to talk to you about impeccable integrity. Integrity is something, a term and a word that we don't hear much anymore, do we, Iris?
Well, unfortunately, we don't hear it, and unfortunately, many of us don't live up to the integrity that at one time most people did.
Mhm.
I think it's time to change our habit patterns. And when people live with integrity, they're happier. The people around them are more comfortable and self-assured because they can know what to expect.
Mhm. There's a thought that was discussed some years ago, which had to do with spiritual integrity and the spiritual integrity that people either have or do not have. And we don't hear that word, those two words together anymore, do we?
That's too bad that we don't.
Mhm.
But perhaps it's just that people don't mention it as much as they did. Let's hope that people still do live with integrity. And you and I know many people who do live with total integrity. And sometimes we don't know all the facts about a situation. So we might second guess and think, well, they're not living with integrity. But I think as a whole, people are living with as much integrity today as they ever did. What do you think?
Well, I think that's absolutely true, and I think you're right in that we don't know the whole story,
Mhm.
and so often in our lives and in the experiences that we go through, we want to believe that we know or that someone else knows, but in fact, no one really knows the circumstance and situation behind the event or behind the spoken word or behind the behavior. And it sometimes takes a little bit of conversation and integrity on our part to get to the core of that reality.
I remember a firm that I worked for many years ago, more than 35 years ago, and they were always protesting. The two top people happened to be men, and they often protested their Christianity, their spirituality.
Mhm.
And a very reliable person said to me, beware of anyone who protests their spirituality. If they say it in public, if they protest that, then you can be rather assured that they really don't live with integrity. And sure enough, those two men proved to be lacking totally in integrity. And there was a widow lady who had an invention, uh, a product that she formulated, and it was for sale, and they stole her product and stole her business from her. And that was a very grave disappointment to any of us who knew them because they were always saying what wonderful Christian men they were.
Mm.
And they don't just have to be Christians to protest, they can be any religion. But when people do protest, I believe from what I've seen over the years, and that was the first time I was really aware of it, that we can beware.
Absolutely. And walking the talk, there's a lot of talk, a
Mhm.
lot of talk about what people believe and how people believe others should behave and how they behave. But the fact is that the demonstration of their lives really may mirror or show something quite different.
Yes, and when we live with integrity, we're more happy, more comfortable, and we can face the world more freely. And therefore, I think people live longer and um, more, more fulfilled every day of their lives.
Hmm.
And only God knows how long we're going to live. But as long as we are living, we can live with integrity and know that we are. And if others have to second guess, that's okay. In the long run, it shows, our life shows for itself how
Hmm.
we've lived.
Yeah, integrity and all of the positive attributes of life reflect in the physical person and in the mental person and in the spiritual person. Um, all of those are of equal importance, but we spend a fair amount of time talking about sometimes the physical realities. And it is true that happiness and living from a center of integrity and honesty with an ethical standard creates a quality of life that is unique and much more fulfilling and happier.
Yes, and we can relax and just know that we're living close to God and without without saying that that's what we're doing,
Mhm.
but just living the life and speaking the word and living the highest we can. Um, it speaks for itself. And again, when people misread sometimes, then they would see that integrity was totally there, and it makes all of life more wonderful.
I think it was St. Francis who said uh, s- uh, to spread the gospel and speak if you must. And so, that's probably good advice so that we live and people see the quality of our life through our actions and our behavior and not necessarily through our words, although our words are important.
Yes, the words would be important. Gandhi was one who lived apparently with total integrity,
Mhm.
and he wasn't seeking fame or fortune. He lived his life the way he thought it was best for himself and therefore for his country, and he put his country first, didn't he?
Absolutely, yes. And so that honesty of spirit is what at the core of what we're talking about today, and being honest in our spirit and in our deepest and innermost part and portion of life.
Yes, and we see that, and I think integrity is really innate because we see it in children as children play, and we'll see some who will sneak and try to manipulate the game, and others who really wouldn't do that. And I'm thinking of one child who hates to lose worse than anyone I've ever seen, but he has an opportunity to cheat with games, but he never cheats. And it's such a thrilling thing to see children who play like that and live that way, just as thrilling as it is to see adults living with integrity. And of course, adults' actions are more far-reaching, and very often it can affect the whole nation or the world, and or the immediate area in which the person lives. But it's again, we believe in reincarnation, and I think we bring in the traits, and we bring in a trait of integrity or lacking, and so forth. So uh, I I like to talk about the young children, the babies who are coming in. I think they're all very advanced souls, and I think they all have great integrity.
Mhm. It's interesting that concept and idea that you just shared, which has to do with the fact that we are all innately honest and we have impeccable integrity from the creative source of who and what we are. And then, of course, as we progress through the experiences of life, a variety of circumstances and situations present themselves to which we respond either in a positive or a negative way, and we then are are often the or often have the unfortunate reality of moving away from that honesty and away from that integrity. But at the core of who and what we are, and as we were originally created, we are uh, created with perfect integrity. And
At one with Creator God. And when we live that way, then we stay in that modality. But we have the opportunity, lifetime after lifetime, to veer away from that. And again, I like to give people credit that sometimes we don't know all the facts that are involved in a situation,
Mhm.
and people might be accused unjustly. And so we need to really be careful how we judge others. And of course, judge not unless I'll be judged in the same manner. But I- if we give people the doubt too and assume they're living with integrity, I think they're more apt to, don't
Mhm.
you?
I think so. I think so. I think that's very true. If, from a practical standpoint, what would you say are some techniques that individuals could follow if they're either surrounded by or in contact with people who lack a level of impeccable integrity?
Well, that would be a tough one. How can we judge how can we know how other people are going to act and react? But I do think to give, I'm just looking at raising children. If you give them the benefit of the doubt, they're more apt to live up to it. So I think we give everyone the benefit of the doubt and let them live up to it, regardless of what age they are and what their position is. And for ourselves to live with integrity, keeping promises, I think, are one of the major things that we can do. And it's one of it's the downfall, I think, of many of us. Unless we really work at not making a promise that we can't keep, it's so easy to fall into that, especially in today's fast-moving world. We get phone calls, and we answer them quickly, and then we sometimes forget. We write notes, but um, we can uh, we can be very careful about what we promise, and also of helping others and giving others a hand up. That is living with integrity. And there are so many, just like cooking. If we're cooking and we use the best ingredients we can get, and we cook thoughtfully and cook with love, then that food is far more tasty, palatable, and easily digested. And it's been proven that that's true. So, whatever we do, whether we're cleaning houses and buildings, or preparing food, or running a business, or raising a family, or teaching, whatever we're doing, if we do it with integrity, then we're far happier in our lives. And it's like throwing a pebble in the water. It flows out and affects many people.
Mhm. And we can find happiness even in situations and circumstances that maybe we wouldn't have been the happiest in.
Yes, we might not have chosen that
Yeah.
outcome, but very often the outcome might be something that, in retrospect, we see, well, that was the only way, and we're glad it happened that way. But then there's times when we think, well, this will never come to, this will always be a detriment in my life. But it's how we look at it.
Yes. And it is always important how we look at any circumstance or situation because we live in our minds and not in the world, as we talk about so often on this program. And the reality of the creative force of the mind and the restorative power of the mind is tremendous and is real. And so we'd like to pause at this point in the program so that you can receive some information.
Mike and Iris invite you to be with them every Sunday morning at the magnificent and historic Scottish Rite Cathedral, located at 855 Elm Avenue in Long Beach. Our worship service and Sunday school begin at 11 a.m. Angelus Unity Cathedral Church at the Scottish Rite Cathedral meets in the only true cathedral church located in the city of Long Beach. This magnificent grand building is a true architectural jewel. The service begins at 11 a.m. and there is Sunday school for the children. There is always plenty of free parking in the cathedral lot. Mike and Iris look forward to meeting you and your family this Sunday. People of all faiths are always welcome. We will be saving you a seat this Sunday at Angelus Unity Cathedral Church at the Scottish Rite Cathedral. You will be warmly welcomed.
The power of the mind to change our lives is absolutely limitless. And so, if we find ourselves in a circumstance or situation where maybe we're not demonstrating the truest and the purest and the most impeccable integrity and honesty in dealing with ourselves and with others, and dealing with ourselves is as important as dealing with others, then we can change our way of behaving by changing our way of thinking, can't we?
Yes, we can. It always begins with thought. Thought does it. And then our actions uh, follow along those lines, however our thoughts are going. But I think um, to live with impeccable integrity means that we are living to the highest within us. And I mentioned to you earlier that I remember there was two men who visited a spiritual retreat, and one of them said they'd been there for a few hours, and one of them said, "Well, these people have impeccable integrity." And it was very thrilling to hear that because that was many years ago. It looks as if I'm going back in time today to many years, but that's how we learn, isn't it? Many years ago, I learned these various lessons and the importance of them and how others view us. And that's how we all live and learn. But we come in, again, we come in with certain traits and characteristics, and we can change those traits and characteristics for the better if we need to and wish to. And it's up to us. And it's limitless what we can do. And knowing that we affect other people and inspire others with what we do, whether we're bandits or good leaders, someone worth following. Well, that gives us food for thought and makes us realize the importance of our own actions. It's not just us, it's all the people who come in contact with us.
Mhm. I think introspection is a good technique for us to follow, and something that we all need to engage in from time to time. And yet we don't do that a lot. I think both in New Thought and metaphysical circles and in traditional circles, introspection, other than groups that are involved in meditation, perhaps Eastern philosophies are certainly more introspective. But when we begin to look within and look at our own behavior and our own feelings and our own life in terms of how it is we are living and behaving, we're confronted with the truth of whether or not and what it is that we need to work on. And the fact is that everybody needs to work on something. And so there isn't a single soul on the planet that doesn't need to work on something. And so as we have this discussion, it's important, I think, for people to spend a little time in retrospection and look at how it is they respond to people, the things that they say, the things that they do, and most importantly, the way that they think. And if there needs to be correction, then that correction needs to be applied in a spiritual sense. And that spiritual correction comes about through meditation and a change of the mind and a renewal, as Paul said, of the mind. And so that is a very important step toward personal growth. And I don't think we devote enough time to that. And perhaps maybe at the fellowship we'll devote some more time to that. But and in some of our lessons and talks, but the techniques through which we can look at ourselves, and we do a good job of looking at others, and we do a good job of deciding how others should behave, and judging others, and blaming others, and doing all of these negative things from time to time, and allowing others to hurt us, and believing that the externals of life are more important than they really are, because the externals are just that. They're things that are happening outside of us, so that inside we can change and be more profound and greater and better persons.
Yes, that's well said. And I like your idea of the introspection. And you and I have often in our discussions talked about meditation first thing in the morning and retrospection in the evening. And retrospection would include the introspection, but also that would be a good habit to follow. I was thinking as we offer people ideas and think of ideas for ourselves, then that would be one of the primary things. The looking at our day, just the retrospection in the evening would be looking at our day to see what we wish we had not done, what we think we might ought to not to have done, and what we ought to have done. And so as we do that, it helps us. If we do that daily, we can't help but live better lives.
Yeah, for years you've taught and worked with people on meditation, in the area of meditation. And as you said, we've always spoken extensively about the use of meditation, both at the fellowship and in our private counseling work and on this program. Uh, and the importance here, I think, is for people to understand and realize that there isn't a right way or a wrong way, but there are techniques, there are certain techniques, and that part of those techniques, if we can discipline ourselves to follow a certain spiritual regimen, then we're better off. It's like exercise of the physical body. It needs to happen on a regular basis. And prayer and meditation need to take place, or should could take place. I shouldn't say we're recommending anything. Whatever works for someone is what they should do. But the morning and the evening, and that evening retrospection, which includes introspection, is very important. And how would someone go about that?
Well, it's for the meditation. The first thing in the morning, we meditate, and some people meditate better if they've had their coffee or breakfast, and most of us meditate better when we're freshly out of bed, and so then we just sit quietly and listen. And we always say meditation is listening to God, and prayer is speaking to God. So have a brief prayer and then meditate and listen to see what we need to do and not do. And also in retrospection in the evening, it's the same idea. We're being quiet and listening and seeing what we ought to have done differently, what we would wish we had done differently. And perhaps the next day will reveal new circumstances. So we change our mind and we have something else that we wish we'd done instead. So it's not that it's a hidebound thing. It's just to really look closely to see how we can live each day more fully, more helpful to others, and that's a big one too. Helping other people. Very often, some people are bossy and they want to. I hope I'm not included in this, but perhaps so. Want to tell everyone how to live and what to do. Well, that's not living with integrity. That's just trying to have our own way. So, to help others when they ask for our help and to be genuinely interested in others and to pray for others to pray for their highest good and to not tell God how people should act, but just thank God that people are living a life, a worthwhile life.
And then release them,
Yes,
and release
totally.
them to experience whatever it is that the divine plan is for their life. Bless them and let them go.
And realize that we can't know.
Right. And that's especially difficult for the people that we know and love, because we want so badly for them to change, but we want them to change the way we want them to change.
Isn't that true?
Yeah, absolutely. And we need to move away from that process. Also, before time gets away, I wanted to just make brief mention of the fact that the idea of retrospection is not inconsistent at all with with the New Thought teaching of living in the now and living in the present moment, because as we participate in the meditative experience and as we are retrospective of the day, we are in the now and we stay in the now. And then it's important for us to release those things and not continue to let them harm us and hurt us, but instead see them as opportunities for improvement. So I just wanted to get that in.
Very good. And also, I hear you saying too that we respect other people and respect them for who and what they are, and to realize that most everyone, is working the best they know how and doing the best they can, and we can't know what other people have been through. Wayne Dyer tells about uh, some people traveling on a train, and there was a man with two children, and the children were running amok, and they were running around noisily. And another man looked over his paper and said, "Can't you control your children?" And the father said, "Well, we just came from their mother's memorial service, and I just thought it helped the children to work out their energy in this way, and I hope you'll forgive me for that decision." And so that made the person feel that life is real and life is earnest, and we don't know what's in other people's lives. And I think that's a true story. It certainly could be, couldn't it?
Absolutely. And we don't know. We don't know what kind of difficulties people are having. We don't know
Yeah.
what kind of hindrances they're having. We don't know what kind of pains and sufferings they're having. And so we just need to be present and reach out to them
Hmm.
and do what we can to help, but then let them go when we reach a point in time, because that has to do with spiritual and personal integrity as
Yes.
well.
Yes, indeed. When we really live with integrity, we don't try and tell anyone what to do or not to do. And I think it's wonderful that the parents today are letting the children make decisions more, and they're letting them choose. And because the children are more living more happily when they have a chance to choose, and they're very often it doesn't matter if they can choose between one and two things that are both good. And and so to me, the world is a better place because more and more people are living with integrity, and we uh, perhaps don't mention it as much because we live it more fully.
Mhm. And the world is a better and better
Yes,
place.
it is.
And that's counter to some conventional thinking, but we often go counter to conventional thinking. But this is a good time to be alive, and it's a good time to be experiencing all of life in all of its varying dimensions. And we have a tendency, I think, as a people to build upon the negative too often and too freely. And as you said, we are living from impeccable integrity, and more people are living so. And just because we have one or two that aren't, we point to those and we think about those, and our consciousness goes to those.
That's true. And like with everything else in pertaining to the news today, we have the internet, newspapers, radio, God forbid, television news, and all this brings in all the negativity in life. And it's hard sometimes for people to just live a life of integrity because there's so much coming at them from all different directions. And also we can become discouraged, and it's all in our own minds too. The way you always say, Heidi Garlish said, the newspaper can be your best means of prayer, of a prayer journal. Well, that's true. We can pray for people for their highest good. We can pray for right action in their lives, or we can say, my, how terrible. And so that's our choices, and life is a series of choices.
Absolutely. And that's a wonderful way to end the program. And you have defined what impeccable integrity is, and the fact that there is more and more of it. And we look forward to seeing you next time. We hope that you found this information useful.